Welcome to the Buddhism Podcast. Today, we're exploring one of the most challenging yet transformative practices in Buddhist tradition: loving kindness meditation for difficult relationships. This is the practice that can literally change your heart and, consequently, your entire experience of challenging people in your life. I remember the exact moment I knew I needed this practice. I was sitting in my car after a particularly tense family gathering, my jaw clenched, my thoughts spinning with resentment and frustration. I'm supposed to be a meditation teacher, I thought, and I can't even spend 2 hours with my own family without losing my center. That night, I committed to exploring loving kindness practice specifically for my most challenging relationships, a journey that has been both humbling and profoundly healing. We all have them, don't we? Those relationships that can instantly trigger us, that seem to bring out our worst qualities, that leave us feeling drained, angry, or defeated. Maybe it's a critical family member who never seems satisfied with your choices. Perhaps it's a colleague whose very presence makes your shoulders tense. Or it could be an ex-partner whose memory still stings, a neighbor whose behavior baffles you, or even someone who's caused you real harm. What makes these relationships so challenging isn't just their immediate emotional impact, it's how they tend to live rent-free in our minds, continuing to cause suffering long after the actual interaction has ended. We replay conversations, rehearse arguments, or build elaborate mental fortresses to protect ourselves from future encounters. The Buddha recognized this pattern of suffering and offered loving kindness practice as a radical alternative. Before we dive in, let's clear up some common misconceptions. Loving kindness meditation isn't about becoming a doormat, pretending difficult people aren't difficult, or forcing yourself to feel warm and fuzzy toward everyone. It's not about excusing harmful behavior or removing necessary boundaries. And it certainly isn't about becoming so spiritually advanced that nothing bothers you anymore. Instead, loving kindness practice for difficult relationships is about something far more practical and powerful, freeing yourself from the internal prison of resentment while maintaining your wisdom and boundaries. It's about discovering that your peace of mind doesn't have to depend on other people's behavior. Today, we'll explore a progressive approach that honors both the challenge and the possibility inherent in these relationships. We'll start by understanding what loving kindness truly means in the context of difficult people, then move through a careful preparation process, explore the traditional 5-phase method, learn to work skillfully with resistance, and discover specific applications for common relationship challenges. This practice requires tremendous courage, not the bravado that fights or flees from difficulty, but the quiet bravery that's willing to keep your heart open even when it's been hurt. As the Dalai Lama wisely observes, the ultimate source of happiness is not money and power, but warm-heartedness. Sometimes the people who challenge us most are our greatest teachers in developing this warm-heartedness. What I find most hopeful about loving kindness practice is that it transforms you from the inside out, regardless of whether the difficult person in your life ever changes. While we can't control others' behavior, we can absolutely change our internal relationship to that behavior, and this shift often creates surprising ripple effects in the external relationship as well. So whether you're dealing with family dynamics that drain your energy, workplace conflicts that steal your peace, or deeper wounds from past betrayals, today's exploration offers a path toward genuine freedom. Not the freedom of never encountering difficult people that's impossible, but the freedom of meeting them from a place of inner strength and, eventually, even kindness. Let's begin this courageous journey together, starting with a deeper understanding of what loving kindness really means when applied to our most challenging relationships. Let's start by clearing up what loving kindness, or metta, in Pali actually means, because this understanding is crucial for applying it skillfully to difficult relationships. In popular culture, loving kindness often gets confused with being nice, agreeable, or emotionally warm toward everyone, but the Buddhist understanding is far more nuanced and practical. Loving kindness is fundamentally the wish for someone's genuine well-being and happiness. Notice that this is quite different from liking someone or enjoying their company. You can sincerely wish for someone's well-being, while simultaneously recognizing that they're not good for you to be around. You can hold loving kindness for someone while maintaining firm boundaries about their behavior, This distinction is liberating. It means you don't have to choose between protecting yourself and keeping your heart open. Think of it this way. You might not enjoy the company of a person with a severe mental illness, but you can still genuinely wish for their healing and peace. Similarly, you might find someone's personality grating while still hoping they find happiness in their life. Loving kindness operates at the level of basic human goodwill, rather than personal preference or emotional chemistry. So why do we have difficult relationships in the first place? Buddhist psychology offers a compassionate perspective on this universal human challenge. According to these teachings, most difficult behavior stems from the three root causes of suffering: greed, excessive wanting, hatred, aversion and anger, and delusion, confusion about what brings genuine happiness. When someone is being particularly challenging, they're typically acting from pain, fear, unmet needs, or confusion about how to get those needs met skillfully. This doesn't excuse harmful behavior. Understanding suffering doesn't mean tolerating abuse. But it does help us see difficult people as fellow human beings caught in patterns of suffering rather than enemies deliberately trying to ruin our day. As the saying goes, hurt people hurt people. When we can see the pain beneath someone's difficult behavior, loving kindness becomes more accessible. Recent neuroscience research has revealed fascinating insights about loving kindness practice that support what Buddhist practitioners have known for centuries. Regular loving kindness meditation actually rewires the brain, strengthening neural pathways associated with empathy, compassion, and emotional regulation, while weakening circuits related to fear and reactivity. Brain scans show increased activity in areas linked to emotional processing and understanding others' mental states. Perhaps most importantly for difficult relationships, loving kindness practice activates the parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest mode, which naturally counteracts the fight or flight response that difficult people often trigger. This means that over time, practicing loving kindness literally changes how your nervous system responds to challenging interactions. Here's a crucial insight that took me years to fully understand. Loving kindness practice is primarily about transforming you, not changing the other person. While your shifted energy might eventually influence the relationship dynamic, that's not why we practice. We practice because carrying resentment is like grasping a hot coal. We're the ones who get burned. Loving kindness is ultimately an act of self-care disguised as concern for others. Why is starting with yourself essential for authentic loving kindness practice? Because you can't give what you don't have. If you're harsh and critical toward yourself, your loving kindness for others will likely feel forced or artificial. But when you've cultivated genuine kindness toward your own struggles and imperfections, extending that same quality to others becomes more natural. It's like filling your own cup first, so you can pour from the overflow rather than from emptiness. Let's also establish realistic expectations for this practice. Loving kindness meditation won't magically transform your difficult relationship overnight. Your challenging family member probably won't suddenly become easier to be around. Your annoying coworker likely won't change their behavior just because you've been sending them good vibes. What will change is your internal experience of these relationships, your reactivity, your rumination, your ability to stay centered in their presence. And sometimes, beautifully and mysteriously, as you become less reactive and more centered, the relationship dynamic does shift. When you stop feeding conflict with your own reactivity, conflicts often naturally de-escalate. When you approach someone with genuine goodwill rather than defensive armor, they sometimes soften in response. But these external changes are bonuses, not goals. One meditation student shared a perfect example of this. After months of practicing loving kindness for her critical mother, she noticed that her mother's comments no longer sent her into defensive spirals. "The amazing thing," she said, "is that once I stopped reacting to my mum's criticism, she seemed to criticize less. Maybe she was always less critical than I thought, and I was just hearing it through the filter of my own defensiveness." This illustrates one of the most profound aspects of loving kindness practice. It often reveals that our difficult relationships exist as much in our minds as in reality. Our stories about people, our expectations of how they'll behave, our memories of past hurts, all of these mental formations color our present moment interactions. Loving-kindness practice helps dissolve these mental barriers, allowing us to meet people more freshly in each encounter. As we move into the practical aspects of this work, remember that loving-kindness for difficult relationships is perhaps the most advanced form of meditation practice. It requires patience, self-compassion, and the willingness to work gradually and skillfully with your own reactivity. But the freedom it offers, the liberation from the internal prison of resentment and fear, makes this challenging work profoundly worthwhile. Before diving into loving-kindness practice with your most challenging relationships, we need to prepare carefully, like a rock climber checking their equipment before attempting a difficult route. This preparation isn't just helpful, it's essential for the practice to be both safe and effective. The traditional loving-kindness sequence is brilliantly designed, progressing from easy targets to increasingly challenging ones. This isn't arbitrary, it's based on deep understanding of how the heart opens. Just as you wouldn't start weightlifting with the heaviest weights, we begin loving-kindness practice with people for whom kind wishes feel natural and easy. Think of it as building your loving-kindness muscle. When you practice with someone you already love, perhaps a dear friend, a beloved pet, or even a spiritual figure like the Buddha or Jesus, you're strengthening neural pathways associated with goodwill and compassion. You're literally training your brain to access these states more readily. This positive emotional momentum becomes crucial when you later turn toward more challenging relationships. The foundation of all authentic loving-kindness practice is self-compassion. This is why virtually every traditional sequence begins with offering loving-kindness to yourself. If you approach this practice while being harsh or critical toward yourself, the loving-kindness you extend to others will feel hollow or forced. But when you've genuinely cultivated kindness toward your own struggles and imperfections, extending that same quality to others becomes more natural and sustainable. Here's a simple self-compassion practice to begin with. Place your hand on your heart and offer yourself these traditional phrases, adapting them to language that feels authentic. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be safe. May I be at ease. Notice any resistance that arises, perhaps a voice saying, I don't deserve this, or this feels selfish. Simply acknowledge these thoughts with kindness and return to the phrases. Remember, you're not trying to manufacture warm feelings, just practicing the intention of goodwill toward yourself. Before beginning any loving-kindness session, especially one involving difficult relationships, take a moment to check in with your current emotional state. Are you feeling relatively calm and centered, or are you raw and reactive? Are you angry about a recent interaction, or can you approach this practice with some equanimity? There's no wrong answer here, but your emotional state should inform how you proceed. If you're feeling particularly activated, angry, hurt, or overwhelmed, it might not be the right time to practice with very difficult relationships. On these days, you might focus entirely on self-compassion or practice with easier targets. This isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Pushing yourself to practice loving kindness when you're emotionally flooded can sometimes backfire, creating association between the practice and emotional overwhelm. An important boundary to establish: there are times when loving kindness practice with certain people isn't appropriate or safe. If you're in an abusive relationship, if contact with someone consistently re-traumatizes you, or if thinking about someone triggers severe anxiety or depression, please prioritize your safety and well-being. Loving-kindness practice can be part of healing from difficult relationships, but it shouldn't come at the expense of your mental health. This is where the concept of neutral persons becomes invaluable. Neutral people are those toward whom you have no strong positive or negative feelings, perhaps a cashier you see occasionally, a neighbor you rarely interact with, or someone you know casually but don't have strong opinions about. Practicing loving kindness for neutral people builds your capacity to extend goodwill beyond your immediate circle of affection without the emotional charge of difficult relationships. I remember discovering the power of neutral person practice during my daily commute. I began silently offering loving kindness to other drivers, people I'd never meet but could practice with safely. May that person in the blue car be happy. May they arrive safely at their destination. This practice gradually expanded my capacity for goodwill without any of the complexity of personal relationship dynamics. Creating emotional safety during loving-kindness practice is crucial, especially when working with difficult relationships. Establish clear boundaries. You can stop the practice anytime you feel overwhelmed. You can return to easier targets if the practice becomes too challenging, and you can modify the traditional phrases to feel more authentic or comfortable. Some people find it helpful to imagine a protective boundary around themselves during practice, perhaps visualizing yourself surrounded by golden light or seated behind a glass wall through which loving kindness can flow but harm cannot enter. Others prefer practicing loving kindness for difficult people from a great distance, imagining them far away while still extending good wishes. Let's try a brief preparation practice together. Settle comfortably and take a few grounding breaths. Begin by placing your hand on your heart and offering yourself loving kindness. May I be safe. May I be well. May I be at peace. Notice how this feels in your body. There's no right way to feel, just notice what's present. Now bring to mind someone you love easily, perhaps a family member, close friend, or even a pet. Extend the same wishes to them. May you be safe. May you be well. May you be at peace. Notice how offering loving kindness to someone you already care about feels different from, and perhaps easier than offering it to yourself. Finally, bring to mind a neutral person, someone you have no strong feelings about. Offer them the same wishes. Notice that even with someone you barely know, you can access a quality of basic human goodwill. This progression from self to loved one to neutral person creates a foundation of positive momentum. By the time you approach difficult relationships, you've already awakened the neural networks associated with loving kindness, making the more challenging work both possible and sustainable. Remember, this preparation isn't just a preliminary step, it's an essential part of the practice that makes genuine transformation possible. Taking time to build your loving-kindness capacity ensures that when you do approach difficult relationships, you're doing so from a place of strength rather than emotional reactivity. Now let's walk through the complete, traditional loving-kindness sequence, with special attention to how each phase prepares you for the ultimate challenge of extending goodwill to difficult relationships. This progression isn't just methodical, it's psychologically brilliant, creating stepping stones that make the seemingly impossible become accessible. The traditional structure uses 4 core phrases, though you're welcome to adapt the language to feel more authentic for you. The classical phrases are, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, may you be at ease. Some people prefer, may you be free from suffering, or may you find peace. Choose language that resonates with your heart, rather than simply reciting words that feel empty. Phase 1. Loving. Kindness for yourself is where we always begin, and for good reason. Place your hand on your heart if that feels comfortable, and offer yourself these wishes with genuine intention. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be safe. May I be at ease. Don't worry if you don't immediately feel warm and fuzzy. This isn't about manufacturing emotions, but about setting a clear intention for your own well-being. If resistance arises, which it often does, simply acknowledge it kindly and return to the phrases. You might notice thoughts like, I don't deserve this, or this feels narcissistic. These are just thoughts passing through. Let them come and go while continuing to offer yourself goodwill. Phase 2. Loving. Kindness for a loved one builds positive momentum. Bring to mind someone you care about deeply, perhaps a family member, close friend, romantic partner, or even a beloved pet. Visualize them clearly and extend the same wishes. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be safe. May you be at ease. This phase typically feels easier and more natural, which is exactly the point. You're training your nervous system to access states of warmth and goodwill. Notice how your body feels when offering loving kindness to someone you already love, perhaps a softening in your chest, a gentle warmth, or simply a quality of openness. This positive emotional state becomes the foundation for more challenging phases. Phase 3. Loving. Kindness for a neutral person is the bridge that expands your capacity beyond personal preference. Choose someone toward whom you have no strong positive or negative feelings, perhaps a neighbor you rarely interact with, a cashier you see occasionally, or someone from your community you know casually but not personally. This phase often surprises people with its power. Extending goodwill to someone you have no particular feelings about reveals that loving kindness isn't dependent on personal affection. It's a more universal quality of basic human goodwill. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be safe. May you be at ease. Notice that even for someone you barely know, you can access a quality of genuine care for their well-being. Phase 4. Loving. Kindness for the difficult person. Here's where the practice gets real. Start with someone mildly challenging rather than your most difficult relationship. Perhaps choose someone who irritates you occasionally but hasn't caused deep harm, a somewhat annoying co-worker, a neighbor whose habits bother you, or a family member who tends to push your buttons. Bring this person to mind gently, without focusing on their annoying qualities or past conflicts. See if you can visualize them as a fellow human being who, like all of us, experiences pain and seeks happiness in imperfect ways. Then offer the phrases, "May you be happy," "May you be healthy," "May you be safe," "May you be at ease." This is where resistance often arises strongly. You might notice thoughts like, "They don't deserve happiness," or "But they hurt me." Your body might tense, or you might feel a wave of anger or sadness. All of this is completely normal. The practice isn't about forcing away these reactions, but about holding them alongside the intention of goodwill. If the resistance becomes overwhelming, you have several options. Return to easier phases to rebuild positive momentum. Modify the phrases to something more accessible like, "May you be free from the pain that causes you to cause pain," or simply take a break and return to the practice later. Phase 5. Loving. Kindness for all beings completes the sequence by extending goodwill universally. May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be safe. May all beings be at ease. This includes everyone, loved ones, neutral people, difficult people, yourself, and even people you've never met. It's a recognition that at the deepest level, we're all interconnected and all deserving of basic well-being. Let's experience this complete sequence together now. Find a comfortable position and take a few centering breaths. Begin with yourself. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be safe. May I be at ease. Repeat these phrases a few times, allowing the intention to settle. Now bring to mind someone you love easily. Offer them the same wishes. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be safe. May you be at ease. Next, choose a neutral person, someone you neither particularly like nor dislike. Extend the same goodwill. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be safe. May you be at ease. Now, gently bring to mind someone mildly challenging, not your most difficult relationship, but someone who sometimes pushes your buttons. With as much sincerity as you can muster, may you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be safe. May you be at ease. Finally, expand to include all beings everywhere. May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be safe. May all beings be at ease. Notice the complete journey you've just taken from personal self-care to universal goodwill, including even challenging relationships along the way. This progression isn't just a meditation technique. It's a training in gradually expanding your capacity for unconditional goodwill. One meditation student described this progression beautifully. It's like gradually adjusting to bright light. If you started by looking directly at the sun, you'd be blinded. But if you start with a candle, then lamplight, then gradually brighter lights, eventually you can handle the full brightness. Loving kindness practice works the same way, starting easy and building capacity for the really challenging relationships. The beauty of this method is that each phase supports the others. Self-compassion makes it easier to extend kindness to loved ones. Loving kindness for loved ones builds momentum for neutral people. Practice with neutral people develops the capacity to separate goodwill from personal preference, making it possible to eventually extend kindness even to difficult relationships. As we continue, we'll explore how to work skillfully with the resistance and difficult emotions that inevitably arise, especially during that crucial fourth phase. Because understanding resistance isn't just helpful, it's essential for making this practice sustainable and transformative. Let's address the elephant in the room. When you practice loving, kindness for difficult relationships, resistance is not just possible, it's inevitable. And here's the surprising truth. This resistance is actually a sign that the practice is working, not failing. It means you're touching real edges, authentic feelings, and the genuine work of transformation. Resistance comes in many forms, and recognizing these different flavors can help you work with them more skillfully. There's the hot resistance of anger, that surge of indignation when you try to wish someone well who has hurt you. There's the cold resistance of numbness, feeling absolutely nothing when you attempt the phrases as if you're reciting a grocery list. There's the anxious resistance of fear-worrying that extending goodwill might make you vulnerable or naive. And there's the intellectual resistance of skeptics that voice asking, "What's the point? This person will never change." All of these responses are completely normal and even healthy. They're your psyche's way of protecting you, showing you where you've been hurt, where you have unfinished emotional business, or where you need to proceed more slowly and carefully. The key is learning to work with resistance rather than being defeated by it. First, let's dispel a common misconception. Loving kindness practice is not about fake it till you make it. If you're forcing yourself to feel warmth towards someone who has genuinely harmed you, you're likely creating more internal tension rather than genuine transformation. Authentic, loving kindness emerges from intention and understanding, not from manufactured emotions. When strong aversion arises during practice, perhaps anger, hurt, or fear, the most skillful response is often to pause and return to self-compassion. Notice what you're feeling without judgment. There's anger here. There's hurt. There's fear. Then offer yourself the same kindness you would extend to a dear friend experiencing these difficult emotions. This is really hard. May I be gentle with myself in this difficulty? Sometimes the resistance reveals important information. If attempting loving kindness for someone triggers intense anxiety, your nervous system might be telling you this relationship isn't safe and requires boundaries. If fury arises, you might need to process grief or anger about genuine harm before genuine goodwill becomes accessible. The practice isn't about overriding these signals, but learning from them. For those times when loving kindness feels completely impossible, here are some intermediate steps that can bridge the gap between resentment and goodwill. You might start with basic human wishes that feel more accessible. May you be free from suffering, rather than may you be happy. It's easier to wish for someone's pain to end than to actively wish for their joy, especially if they've caused you harm. Try wishing for their healing or growth. May you find peace. May you learn and grow. May you be free from whatever pain causes you to cause pain. This acknowledges that difficult behavior often stems from suffering while maintaining healthy boundaries around their actions. Practice loving kindness for them from a great distance, either geographically or temporally. May you be well. Far away from me, or may the child you once were find peace. Sometimes it's easier to extend goodwill to the innocent aspects of someone, rather than their current problematic behavior. You can even start with loving kindness for their loved ones. May your children be safe. May your parents find peace. This can gradually soften your heart toward their humanity, without requiring immediate goodwill toward their difficult behavior. There are definitely times when the wisest course is to pause the practice entirely and return to self-compassion. If you're feeling overwhelmed, if old trauma is being activated, or if you're forcing yourself through the practice with gritted teeth, it's time to step back. This isn't failure. It's wisdom about your current capacity and needs. One meditation student shared her experience with this boundary. I kept trying to practice loving kindness for my abusive ex-husband because I thought I was supposed to, but it kept re-traumatizing me. My teacher helped me understand that self-protection is also a form of loving kindness, sometimes the most important form. I spent months practicing loving kindness for myself and other trauma survivors before I could even think about extending goodwill to him. The importance of honesty in this practice cannot be overstated. If you're not feeling loving kindness, acknowledge that truth rather than pretending. You might modify your practice. I can't wish you happiness right now, but I can wish for both of us to be free from this cycle of hurt. Or, I wish you no harm, even if I can't yet wish you well. This honesty actually deepens the practice because it keeps you connected to your authentic experience, rather than performing some idealized version of spiritual advancement. Real loving kindness grows from real self-awareness, not from spiritual perfectionism. Let's try working with resistance right now. Bring to mind someone who typically triggers some difficult emotions for you, not necessarily your most challenging relationship, but someone who brings up mild to moderate reactivity. As you attempt to offer them loving kindness phrases, simply notice what arises without trying to fix or change it. Begin with, "May you be happy." Notice any resistance, tightness, or difficult emotions. Don't push them away. Just observe them with curiosity. Try, "May you be free from suffering." Notice if this feels more or less accessible than wishing for their happiness. Finally, try, "May you find peace, may I find peace, may we both be free from this difficulty." Notice how including yourself and the relationship dynamic changes the quality of the practice. The goal isn't to feel blissful about difficult people, but to gradually expand your capacity for goodwill without abandoning your wisdom about boundaries and safety. As the beloved teacher Pema Chodron says, "Loving kindness is not a matter of forcing ourselves to love somebody, but rather of learning to see them as a fellow human being and wishing them well." Working skillfully with resistance in loving kindness practice teaches us something profound about emotional resilience. We can hold seemingly contradictory experiences simultaneously. We can feel hurt about someone's actions while still wishing for their ultimate well-being. We can maintain healthy boundaries while keeping our hearts open. We can protect ourselves while avoiding the poison of hatred. This capacity to hold complexity is perhaps one of the greatest gifts of loving kindness practice. It matures us emotionally and spiritually, teaching us that the human heart is far more spacious than we often realize. Now let's get practical and explore how to apply loving kindness meditation to specific types of challenging relationships that most of us encounter. Each relationship category presents its own unique challenges and requires slightly different approaches to be most effective. Critical family members often trigger our deepest wounds because they know exactly which buttons to push. They installed many of those buttons. Whether it's a parent who never seems satisfied, a sibling who constantly compares, or an extended family member whose criticism stings, these relationships carry the weight of history and often unmet childhood needs. For critical family members, try starting your loving kindness practice by acknowledging the pain beneath their criticism. Critical people are often deeply insecure themselves, trying to feel better by pointing out others' flaws. You might begin with phrases like, "May you find the approval you're seeking. May you feel worthy just as you are. May you be free from the need to criticize others to feel good about yourself." One student found breakthrough with her perpetually dissatisfied mother by practicing, "May you find the peace that criticism cannot provide. May you discover your own inherent worth." This shifted her from reactive defensiveness to genuine compassion for her mother's underlying insecurity. Workplace conflicts present their own challenges, because we often can't avoid these people. We have to function professionally alongside them. Whether it's a micromanaging boss, a backstabbing colleague, or a team member who doesn't pull their weight, workplace relationships require maintaining professional effectiveness while protecting your emotional well-being. For difficult colleagues, try focusing on their professional success rather than personal happiness. May you find fulfillment in your work. May you develop the skills you need to succeed. May you contribute positively to our shared goals. This keeps the practice professional while still extending goodwill. For micromanaging bosses, you might practice, "May you find the trust to delegate. May you feel secure in your leadership. May you be free from the anxiety that drives you to control everything." This acknowledges their behavior while addressing its likely root causes. Past hurts and betrayals require perhaps the most delicate approach because they often involve processing grief, anger, and broken trust before genuine goodwill becomes accessible. Whether it's a former partner who cheated, a friend who betrayed confidences, or someone who caused financial harm, these relationships need time and often professional support to heal. Start by honoring your own healing process. May I heal from this betrayal. May I learn to trust wisely again. May I find peace despite what happened? Only when you've built a foundation of self-compassion does it become possible to extend goodwill to those who've harmed you. When you're ready, you might try. May you be free from whatever confusion led you to cause harm. May you learn from your mistakes. May you find genuine happiness that doesn't come at others' expense. Notice how this acknowledges the harm while still wishing for their growth and healing. Those who've caused serious harm present the ultimate test of loving-kindness practice. This might include abusers, people who've committed crimes, or those whose actions have caused lasting damage. It's crucial to understand that practicing loving-kindness for such people doesn't mean excusing their behavior, minimizing the harm done, or removing the need for accountability and justice. In these situations, loving-kindness often begins with wishing for justice and protection. May justice be served. May others be protected from harm. May you be prevented from causing further damage. You're extending goodwill for the highest good of all involved, which sometimes means hoping someone faces appropriate consequences for their actions. Over time, as your heart heals, you might gradually move toward, may you understand the full impact of your actions. May you feel genuine remorse and seek to make amends. May you be transformed by facing the truth of what you've done. Ongoing conflict situations require a different approach because you're actively dealing with tension and disagreement. Whether it's a contentious divorce, a property dispute with neighbors, or ongoing family drama, these situations need loving kindness that supports both resolution and your own sanity. Try practicing. May we find a solution that serves everyone's highest good. May wisdom guide our interactions. May we both be free from the stress of this conflict. This shifts the focus from winning to resolving, from being right to finding peace. One crucial aspect of all these applications is maintaining the balance between loving kindness and healthy boundaries. Loving kindness doesn't mean becoming a doormat or allowing harmful behavior to continue. You can genuinely wish someone well while also protecting yourself from their dysfunction. You can hope for their healing while refusing to enable their harmful patterns. Think of it like a surgeon. They can operate on someone with great care and skill while still making necessary cuts. Similarly, you can extend loving kindness while still enforcing boundaries, ending relationships that don't serve you, or taking legal action when necessary. Using loving kindness during actual interactions with difficult people requires practice and skill. Before challenging conversations, take a moment to silently offer loving kindness to both yourself and the other person. May we both find wisdom in this conversation. May we both feel heard and respected. This sets an intention that often shifts the entire dynamic. During tense interactions, you might silently practice, "This person is suffering. May they find peace. May I respond with wisdom rather than reactivity." This doesn't mean being passive, but approaching conflict from a place of centered strength rather than emotional reactivity. A workshop participant shared how this transformed her relationship with her difficult mother-in-law. Instead of dreading family gatherings, I started practicing loving kindness for her before and during visits. I'd silently wish for her happiness and peace. Amazingly, she seemed to soften toward me. Maybe she was responding to my changed energy, or maybe I was just perceiving her differently. Either way, our relationship became much more manageable. The ripple effects of loving kindness practice often surprise people. As you become less reactive and more centered, difficult people sometimes respond differently to you. Not always. Some people are committed to their patterns regardless of your energy, but often enough to make the practice worthwhile, even from a purely practical perspective. Remember, these specific applications are suggestions, not rigid formulas. Adapt them to your unique situations and relationships. The goal is finding authentic expressions of goodwill that honor both your well-being and your capacity for genuine care, even toward those who challenge you most. The real transformation in loving kindness practice happens not during formal meditation sessions, but in the moments when difficult relationships trigger you in daily life. This is where the practice moves from cushion to kitchen table, from concept to lived experience, from spiritual exercise to genuine heart transformation. Building a sustainable loving kindness practice doesn't require hours of daily meditation. Instead, it's about weaving brief moments of goodwill throughout your ordinary days, especially when challenging relationships test your patience. Think of it as developing new mental habits, rather than adding another lengthy task to your already busy schedule. Start with what I call micro-practices, tiny moments of loving kindness that take just seconds but gradually rewire your default responses. When you see someone's name pop up in your email who typically annoys you, pause for one breath and silently offer, "May you be well." When a difficult family member calls, take a moment before answering to wish them peace. When you pass a challenging colleague in the hallway, mentally send them goodwill, rather than bracing for interaction. These micro moments might seem insignificant, but they're actually profound. Each brief intention of goodwill creates a small shift in your neural pathways, gradually training your mind to default toward kindness rather than reactivity. It's like wearing a groove in a path through repeated walking. Eventually, your feet naturally find that route. One of the most powerful times to practice loving kindness is precisely when difficult relationship triggers arise. That moment when your mother-in-law makes a passive-aggressive comment, when your boss sends a frustrating email, when your ex-partner texts you about custody changes, these are golden opportunities to apply loving kindness in real time. Here's how. The instant you feel that familiar surge of irritation or hurt, pause and take one conscious breath. In that breath space, silently offer loving kindness to yourself first. May I stay centered in this moment. Then, if possible, extend brief goodwill to the other person. May you be at peace too. This doesn't mean being passive or failing to address legitimate issues. It means responding from wisdom rather than reactivity. The ripple effects of consistent loving-kindness practice are often surprising and sometimes miraculous. As you become genuinely less reactive, several things typically happen. You stop feeding conflict with your own emotional energy, which often naturally de-escalates tensions. You begin seeing people's difficult behavior as expressions of their own pain rather than personal attacks on you. You develop what psychologists call emotional immunity, the ability to remain centered even when others are dysregulated. A meditation student shared this beautiful example. I'd been practicing loving kindness for my critical sister for months. During a family dinner, she made her usual cutting remarks about my parenting choices. Instead of my typical defensive response, I felt genuine compassion for how insecure she must feel to need to criticize others. I simply said, "I can hear that you're concerned," and changed the subject. She looked confused for a moment, then the whole tension in the room shifted. We actually had a pleasant conversation for the rest of the evening. How do you measure progress in loving kindness practice? Unlike meditation techniques focused on concentration or mindfulness, the fruits of loving kindness practice show up in your relationships and your emotional responses to challenging people. You might notice that you think about difficult people less obsessively, that their triggering behaviors affect you for shorter periods, or that you feel genuine curiosity about their well-being rather than just wanting them to change. Progress isn't always linear, and it definitely isn't about becoming a spiritual saint who never feels irritated. Some days, you'll respond to difficult people with grace and wisdom. Other days, you'll find yourself caught in old patterns of reactivity. This is completely normal. The practice is learning to return to loving kindness more quickly after you've been triggered, not never being triggered at all. Creating support for this challenging work is essential. Find others who understand the difficulty and importance of loving kindness. Practice perhaps through a meditation, community, therapy group, or spiritual book club. This work touches our deepest wounds and patterns, and having witnesses to our struggles and progress makes the journey more sustainable. Consider keeping a simple loving-kindness journal where you note your experiments with difficult relationships, what worked, what felt forced, when you noticed shifts in your responses. This isn't about judging your progress, but about staying conscious of this subtle inner work. Remember that loving kindness practice is ultimately an act of radical self-care disguised as concern for others. Every moment you choose goodwill over resentment, you're freeing yourself from the internal prison of bitterness. Every time you respond to difficulty with wisdom rather than reactivity, you're strengthening your emotional resilience and capacity for joy. The beautiful paradox of this practice is that as you become more genuinely free from needing others to change, they sometimes naturally do. As you become less reactive to their difficult behavior, conflicts often de-escalate. As you approach them with authentic goodwill rather than defensive armor, they may soften in response. But these external changes are bonuses, not goals. The real transformation is your own growing capacity to meet life's difficulties with an open heart. As Buddhist teacher Jack Cornfield wisely observes, the more we practice loving kindness, the more we realize that love is not just an emotion, but a way of being in the world. This way of being gradually becomes your default response to all relationships, difficult and easy alike, transforming not just specific conflicts, but your entire approach to human connection. As we come to the end of our exploration of loving kindness meditation for difficult relationships, let's take a moment to appreciate the courageous journey you've embarked upon. This practice asks perhaps the most challenging thing possible of the human heart: to remain open even when it's been hurt, to extend goodwill even when it hasn't been reciprocated, to choose love as a way of being rather than just a feeling. We've traveled through understanding what loving kindness truly means beyond popular misconceptions, preparing carefully for this sensitive work, learning the progressive 5-phase method, working skillfully with inevitable resistance, exploring specific applications for common relationship challenges, and discovering how to integrate this practice into daily life. Each step builds upon the others, creating a complete approach to transforming your most difficult relationships from sources of suffering into opportunities for wisdom and growth. If you take just one thing from today's exploration, let it be this: you don't have to wait for difficult people to change in order for your experience of them to transform. The freedom that loving kindness practice offers is immediate, and within your control. It's the liberation that comes from refusing to let resentment poison your own heart, regardless of others' behavior. Start gently with this practice. Choose someone who's mildly challenging rather than your most difficult relationship. Practice loving kindness for yourself regularly, building the foundation of self-compassion that makes authentic goodwill toward others possible. Remember that this is a practice, not a performance. There's no need to force feelings you don't have or pretend to be more spiritually advanced than you are. The transformation that's possible through consistent loving kindness practice is both subtle and profound. You may find that people who once occupied significant mental real estate in your mind gradually fade to background figures. Interactions that once left you spinning for hours or days begin to roll off more easily. Most importantly, you discover a kind of emotional resilience, not the armor of defensiveness, but the strength that comes from keeping your heart open even in difficult circumstances. What requires the most courage in this practice isn't the formal meditation sessions, but the moment-to-moment choice to meet difficulty with goodwill rather than reactivity. It's the decision to respond to your mother's criticism with curiosity rather than defensiveness. It's the choice to wish your difficult colleague well rather than gossip about their latest mistake. It's the radical act of refusing to let someone else's dysfunction determine the state of your own heart. In our next episode, we'll explore Buddhist approaches to social media, another area where loving kindness practice becomes surprisingly relevant as we navigate the complex dynamics of digital relationships and online conflicts. Before we part, let's share a final moment of loving kindness practice together. Settle comfortably and bring to mind your own dear self, all the ways you've struggled, all the times you've been hurt, all your sincere efforts to do your best despite life's challenges. Offer yourself genuine goodwill. May I be happy, may I be at peace, may I be free from suffering. Now expand this circle of goodwill to include someone you love easily, someone neutral, and, yes, even someone who challenges you. Finally, let this goodwill encompass all beings everywhere, all those struggling with difficult relationships, all those working to keep their hearts open despite pain, all those seeking the same happiness and freedom from suffering that you desire. Rest for a moment in this vast field of goodwill, remembering that this capacity for universal love isn't something you need to achieve or earn. It's your natural state when fear and resentment are laid down. The Buddha said, "Hatred is never conquered by hatred. Hatred is conquered by love. This is an eternal law." In practicing loving kindness for difficult relationships, You're participating in this eternal law, contributing to healing not just your own wounds, but the broader web of human suffering that connects us all. Thank you for having the courage to explore this transformative practice. May your difficult relationships become doorways to greater wisdom and compassion. May your heart remain open even when it's challenging. And may you discover that love truly is not just an emotion, but a revolutionary way of being in the world. Until we meet again, may you be well, may you be at peace, and may you find the strength to meet all beings, especially the difficult ones, with kindness.